What is up, y'all? Welcome back to Rough Drafts. My name is Sam Pratt. This week we're going to be spending a little more time talking about Cube, specifically talking about rotisserie drafting, and rotisserie drafting my own cube. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you might notice that you can once again see my face. I am recording video for this. Audio listeners, this episode is going to be totally fine just to listen to. I'm once again going to not really read out the card text of any card, but have like a cards mentioned link, like a sealeddeck.tech link, so you can read that after, or you can just like follow along on my cube list. But I do want to show like the rotisserie draft spreadsheet, and show off some deck pictures from the rotisserie drafts that we did of my cube. So I figured that video might be pretty helpful for this. So if you have the time, you might want to switch over. But like I said, I'm planning for this to be totally fine for audio listeners. So yeah, let's jump in. I'm going to start with just going over what rotisserie draft is. So if you don't know what rotisserie draft is, or roto draft, you basically draft the entire cube face up. So if you've ever drafted like fantasy sports, fantasy football, it's a lot like that. In fantasy football, you draft the entire like NFL skill position player base face up, and you do what's called snake drafting. So all the players in the draft pod are randomly assigned a seat, and then you pick, we had 10 players in both of our pods, and you pick 1 through 10. And then when you get to number 10, 10 gets to pick twice, and then it wraps back around to 10 back to 1, and then 1 picks twice, and then it wraps 1 to 10. So the corners get to pick twice, and it sort of snakes back and forth from 1 to 10, 10 to 1, and so on. I think for a rotisserie draft, 10 players is a pretty good number. I'm sure it depends a little bit on the size of the cube. But we did both pods having 10 players, and it felt like a really comfortable number for my cube in particular. But you can rotisserie draft with any number of players, really. As for how to run it, I am once again going to reference Lucky Paper Radio. Lucky Paper has they have like this resource tab on their website that has a bunch of different resources for various cube things. One of them is a rotisserie draft template. It's like a Google Sheet that you can copy, and it's very easy to use. You basically just like plug your cube in. It will autofill all of the cards in the cube into the cube tab, and then you put all of your players, and then it like randomly assigns them a seat and kind of handles everything and makes it look nice with all the cards being in the right color on the spreadsheet. It's very, very easy to use. It's an awesome resource. I don't think this would be possible, or I think it would be a lot harder to do if there wasn't this like automated Google Sheet. So if you're interested in doing this after you watch this video or listen to this podcast, I would highly recommend checking that out to run it. And I also would highly, highly recommend rotisserie drafting with your friends, because this was the most fun I had talking Magic in quite some time. It was very, very fun. So the number of picks you make is flexible. I think most times you do 45 just to mimic a normal draft pod, where you draft 3 packs of 15 and you end up with 45 total. One quirk for rotisserie drafting is that after pick 25, or I think we actually set it to after pick 20, players will be taking 2 cards per pick rather than 1, just to speed up the back half. The first couple rounds are really tense because everyone's kind of finding their lane, but once people are in their lane, there's often not a lot of like overlap or like fighting over cards. So having players do 2 picks per pick really speeds up the back part of the draft. I should mention, before I get too deep, one of the great things about rotisserie draft, and why I think this is such a fun way to cube and such a social thing, is that you can do this completely asynchronously. So what I mean by that is you have player 1 picks a card, and then basically in our Discord, in my like cube Discord, we have all these channels set up for a rotisserie draft, and there's a specific channel called Pass the Pick. And once you pick a card, you ping the person that you're passing to. So you let them know that, hey, it's your turn to pick. And they can do that when they're free. So you don't need to actually sit down and rotisserie draft over the course of like a couple hours. Our rotisserie draft, we were really into it. It took a week. I watched other people rotisserie draft my cube, and it took 3 weeks, just because, like, people are busy. Sometimes it gets held up on one person for a couple hours or maybe like a day, and that's totally fine. But really, like, the thing that was so fun about this was that it was such a social experience that happened over the course of a week, and more. So asynchronously was definitely the way to go. It was very fun, and that's really what I'm talking about today. So for actually playing the games, like, this is like kind of a big event. Like I said, the draft takes place over the course of a week for us. The Lucky Paper spreadsheet template also has a whole page for recording the matches. And I think usually with Rotisserie Draft, you draft round robin. So there were 10 players per pod in our Rotisserie Draft. And so that means you play 9 matches with your deck, which is a lot compared to a normal draft. But usually with Rotisserie Draft, because you're drafting everything in the cube and you're drafting it face up, decks are very powerful. They're very cool. You usually like have a plan from your first pick. So it's like this whole event that really builds up to playing like a lot of matches with your deck. So how did I get into rotisserie drafting? So I was reached out to by someone named Tyler, who said that his local cube group in the Bay Area, California, does like a seasonal rotisserie draft, maybe like yearly or a couple times a year. And they had chosen my cube to rotisserie draft for this season. So I said that was really cool. I asked if I could join their Discord and watch in, and I was hooked. Like, watching all of the picks go by, like being like, ooh, is this player going to like cut this other player off this certain card? How is this card still in the pool? Like, it's really tense. Like, how long until someone takes Gut, True Soul Zealot? It was just really fun to watch other people draft my cube face up. People that I have never talked to, people that I've never played Magic with, that would have totally different card evaluations. So it was a really fun experience for me to watch a different play group draft face up. And I was really invested, and I asked if I could share the spreadsheet that they were drafting on, which was read only for me and others. I asked if I could share that with my own cube group. And I had previously floated rotisserie drafting my cube to my like cube Discord, where we have been drafting my cube online. And I got like very medium reactions, like not enough people were interested to fill a full pod. But once I shared this playgroup's rotisserie draft spreadsheet and people saw like how exciting it was to watch all of the picks happen face up, there was so much interest in rotisserie drafting. And we actually fired 2 whole rotisserie drafts of 10. So we had 20 people interested in rotisserie drafting my cube in my Discord, which was so much fun. So I kind of semi-randomly organized people into 2 separate pods. We have the Lightning Bolt pod and the Birds of Paradise pod, and we commenced each of the drafts. So I'm going to go in detail on my draft in particular, and then I'm going to walk through a couple of the top performing deck lists, and then share some of my takeaways about my own cube after this process. Before I start that, I want to talk about a couple things that I learned from this process of just drafting rotisserie. Like a couple logistical things that we figured out. One is that the pass the pick Discord channel that we use, where you ping the next person that you're passing, like that drafts after you. It was very helpful for everyone kind of following along, because all 20 of us were like following each other's pods. We're like very invested in everything, talking about it a lot. It was very helpful for us to not only ping the next person that we were passing the pick to, but also write or like type a message with the card that we were picking. Just so people could follow along without the spreadsheet. It's actually recommended in the instructions in like the Lucky Paper template to use a pass the pick channel, which was great. I don't know how else we would do this. But I just wanted to mention also that just typing the name of the card in that message really helped us follow along. The other thing that helped us speed the process up was having a neutral third party. That could be someone that's either not participating in your draft, or in our case, it was someone who was maybe in the other pod, using a neutral third party to sort of cache players' picks, just to help if like one player is like at work or has gone to bed. If they know that they're not going to be available for a couple hours, they can send a couple of picks that they want to this neutral third party so that that player can edit the spreadsheet and pass the pick in their stead while they're away. So the Birds of Paradise pod, my pod that I was in, this little run right here of Aspie, Samp, Whale Matron, that is France, Chicago, Australia. So we, this pod in particular had all of the Europeans, some Americans, and an Australian. So we were all over the place in terms of time zones. And we sort of brute force draft the first couple picks because they're really important. But then we really relied on sending our picks ahead of time to a neutral third party for the rest of the draft, which sped things up immensely. So we actually finished the entire 45 pick rotisserie draft in 1 week. And we actually finished ahead of Lightning Bolt Pod, who was all Americans. So we were very invested, very diligent, and sort of like caching your picks ahead of time with a neutral third party really sped things up. The other, Tyler's group, the other rotisserie draft, actually finished in 3 weeks. It took them 3 weeks to do the whole thing. So I was pretty proud of how invested we were that we were able to finish in a single week. Like I said, we had so much fun doing this. It's a very like social thing, like the little like side conversations of like I was having with the other pod, talking to individual people, being like, what are you trying to do? And they would let me know ahead of time. And I could see like the tension of like, is one person gonna like steal this card from the other player? Just like all of the conversations about like face up card evaluation. It was really just like a really good time. And just so much to talk about, and really like builds sort of community drafting this cube face up, which is really becoming a big part of how I engage with Magic, is like as a community. So like I said, I'm going to jump into my draft in particular and some of the individual aspects of these two drafts. But I just want to stress that this is so much fun and I cannot recommend it enough. So I'm not going to talk about everyone's lane, all 20 of us, but I will talk about my own draft. So I was picking, what is that, 6th in the Birds of Paradise pod. And I had my eyes set on Ancient Tomb. This is kind of a card that I have fallen in love with as I've gotten to play it more when it's been in my cube. Thank you to the Edge of Eternity's bonus sheet for printing it into Arena. Ancient Tomb is a card I didn't think was going to go in the first 5 picks. I think some of the individual power outliers like Ocelot Pride or Reanimate, the more focused ones, were going to go first. Ancient Tomb has a very real downside, has a couple of very real downsides. One is that it only produces colorless mana. So you really need to focus on cards that have ways for you to spend 2 colorless mana. And the other is the life loss. And the life loss really makes it so that Ancient Tomb cannot go in a reactive deck. You want Ancient Tomb to be powering out threats ahead of curve so that you can kill your opponent before the life loss on your side adds up to too much. So for me, that narrows it down. It rules out blue. And blue is just too reactive a color in this cube to really take advantage of Ancient Tomb. I was looking at Ancient Tomb either for a white aggressive deck, a red aggressive deck, or actually I had my eyes secretly set on a green aggressive deck. And I was pretty happy taking Ancient Tomb early because it left me open to all 3 of those lanes. And because the cube is drafted face up, you can really get a sense of what other people's lanes are and stay open and find your lane later on. So I took Ancient Tomb with my first pick, sort of trying to feel out if someone was going to move into mono white or mono red. And indeed, on the corner, Gut, True Soul Zealot, and Quarry Steelcutter were taken. And when it got back to me, I figured that someone was going to try to go into mono white, but I was still really looking at like a mono green beatdown deck. But Swords to Plowshares was available to me at, what is it? I think 15th pick, which was insane to me. Like I think Swords to Plowshares should be a top 5 pick in my rotisserie draft of my cube. Just because my cube has the double shock, double fetch mana base. And splashing an individual card like Swords to Plowshares, that's like the most efficient removal spell in the cube, is just so free, especially when you're drafting face up and you can just pick up like one white shock land to splash it. So I was very, very happy taking Swords pick 2. I was shocked that it fell to me. And even though that is a white card, I was still trying to feel out if someone was going to move into mono white. And trying to leave a lane open to get into a green beatdown deck. And indeed, we saw in round 1, Flage and Ocelot Pride got taken. And in round 2 on that wheel, Felia, Path to Exile, and Mother of Runes all got taken. So by the time it got to my 3rd pick, which is like pick, I think, 26, the only green cards that had been taken were Renin 6 and Uro. So I snapped up Scythecat Cub, which is, if you don't know what this is, it's a 2-mana 2/2 with trample, and landfall, put a counter on a creature, but if it's the second time this ability is resolved, you double the number of 1/1 counters, which is just a very, very powerful green beatdown card, a lot like Bristly Bill. So I was very happy to snap up Scythecat Cub there and try to forge into my sort of green beatdown lane with Ancient Tomb. And I was really hoping to pick up Bristly Bill, as sort of a redundant aspect of Scythecat Cub. Both of those are 2-drops that don't play super well with Ancient Tomb, but I do think that Cub and Bill are some of the best green cards in the cube. But unfortunately, the other green drafter, Balbadorf, did take Bristly Bill right after that. He had taken Strip Mine and Renin 6 in the first couple picks, so I didn't think he was going to take Bristly Bill. I was a little upset at that, but you know, it's fine. There's plenty more green cards. Pick 4, I ended up taking Smuggler's Copter, which is another card that I was surprised to fall all the way to pick 4. Copter just being a very flexible, generically good, cheap card that filters your draws. I think Copter is very, very powerful. I was very happy to take it there, actually. From there, I knew I really needed to focus on fetch lands to make Scythecat Cub exceptionally good. So the next 3 picks, I took Windswept Heath, the second Windswept Heath, and Wooded Foothills. And you could see there I kind of started a run on fetch lands. Like other players, after I took the second fetch land, also were moving in and took like Bloodstained Mire, Polluted Delta. I just kind of took like generically good green cards from there. I picked up in pick 8 Fanatic of Ronis, which for my money is one of the best green cards in the cube. Noble Hierarch, one of the best mana dorks. A couple more green fetch lands. So I ended up with 5 green fetch lands, which I felt was very, very good. A very good place to be. Sort of because a lot of the green cards in my cube there's good green cards. I like green in my cube, but a lot of the like medium ones are very, very interchangeable. As opposed to black, where black has like a lot of really good cards at the top, and then it sort of like drops off pretty hard. I feel like green has very few like power outliers. Like the power outliers in green are kind of the mana dorks, and there's like a ton of mana dorks that are like mostly similar power level to each other, as I'll get into later. So the fetch lands were really what I needed to focus on first, and then I could sort of take whatever green things were left. So I had like a bunch of green mana stuff. I had like Lotus Cobra. I took a Essica's Chariot. I took the other Hierarch. I was actually really happy to get Palantir of Orthanc, pick 15. This is a card that is really good in proactive strategies. I think it's pretty underrated in my cube. And is also very good with Ancient Tomb because you can power it out on turn 2, which I did do quite a bit and was pretty good. The rest of the draft I'll run through pretty quickly. I kept waiting for the other green drafter to start taking the 1-mana mana dorks. There are effectively 7 1-mana mana dorks in my cube. There's Birds of Paradise, both Hierarchs, Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic, and Utopia Sprawl, and then also Molt Tender, which I wasn't really interested in. Um, so I kept waiting for the other green drafter to start taking them because I figured as like a green beatdown deck, I only really wanted like 4 1 mana dorks. So I could sort of wait for him to make the first move and move in after. And he just didn't. And he started taking all of the like mid-range green threats like Sentinel of the Nameless City that I was hoping to get later while he was taking these green mana dorks for his more rampy lands deck. Remember, this is the drafter that started on Strip Mine, Wrenn and 6, Ice-Till Explorer. So we ended up sort of like swapping roles from what I expected. And once I got literally all of the mana dorks I wanted, I ended up with 5 1-mana dorks. I pivoted into being a very streamlined mono green ramp deck. So I started with the plan of being like Scythe Cat Cub Beatdown. I ended up on 5 mana dorks, Raphellos, Nissu Shakes the World, etc. Just like a green ramp deck. And my like last 10 picks were like Wormcoil Engine, Sky Sovereign, Cityscape Leveler, Thrag Tusk, like these huge top end threats. So this was my final deck. I built it in paper when we did all our deck screenshots just for fun. For the audio listeners, I have this up. I'm going to do my best to explain it. I'm on 15 lands because I have 5 mana dorks plus Raphellos, Fanatic of Ronis, Lotus Cobra. So kind of a ludicrous amount of ramp. And then my top end is like Nissu Shakes the World, Nissa Ascended Animist, which is the Phyrexian one, Titan of Industry, Cityscape Leveler, Great Henge. Pretty low on interaction, which is pretty standard. I have Swords to Plowshares, splashing off Temple Garden and Lush Portico, and Voracious Hydra is another interactive spell. I was very, very happy with this deck. I thought I pivoted really well into a ramp deck. And I also thought that I had a lot of really good sideboard options. So I sort of pre-boarded for more mid-range or control matchups with Sky Sovereign and Wormcoil Engine and Thrag Tusk in the sideboard, thinking that I would board those in against aggro. And I was overall really happy with this. And I went 3-6 in the round robin. So basically in hindsight, I should have built my deck much more flexibly for game one. I basically got run over by all the aggro decks, and was not able to, I took them to game 3 pretty much every time, but they were able to run me over pretty consistently. I was also pretty weak to hand disruption, which came up a lot. I was able to fight through board disruption quite easily. But hand disruption, just like I play my dorks, they just like take my top end threat and then I'm left with nothing. That was really brutal in my games. My deck had a very high ceiling. I was able to turn 3 a Titan of Industry multiple games with the Raphellos, but that ultimately ended up not mattering in like a best of 3 world, where that just like wasn't consistent. Like my opponent had the interaction most games. So I thought it was interesting that I ended up being very, very happy with my deck. I do feel like I got a little bit unlucky in the games. If I could build this again, I would actually bump the land count up to 16. I had a lot of landfall in my deck with like Tireless Tracker, Tireless Provisioner, Lotus Cobra. But what ended up happening was I had so many fetch lands that I was thinning my deck of lands way too much, and those landfall payoffs were not triggering after like turn 3. So that was another thing that I thought that I misbuilt. The other thing being I would have brought in something like Wormcoil Engine into the main board and had a little more of the stuff like Great Henge in the sideboard, which is a grindy card for control. Or like stuff like Palantir of Orthanc is just like a total blank against aggro. They just say like, oh, you can just like have a card or like you can mill me. So was pretty disappointed with my 3-6 in the event, but I was playing against good players and I felt like I learned a lot of good lessons about my cube in general and about green. And I did have some pretty sweet games where I turned 3 Titan of Industry people. So I had a good time. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to be walking through everyone's deck list and everyone's draft, but I will focus on the top 2 players in each pod. So we have finished all of the matches in each pod, and we are now in a phase where we've decided to do like a top 4 playoff. So the 1 seed of Birds of Paradise pod will fight the 2 seed of Lightning Bolt pod and vice versa, and then we'll have like a championship match from there. So we weren't able to finish that in time for me to record. I'll update you guys later. If you do want to look at every deck list and everyone's draft, I will be linking the Rotisserie draft spreadsheets in the episode description. And if you want to, that will show everyone's like draft pool and how the drafts went. If you want to look at the actual deck lists, I think the easiest way for you to do that is to just join my Cube Discord. I'll have my contact information later, but you can just like reach out to me on Discord or Blue Sky or something. And I will invite you. I don't really want to put like a public link to my Discord. But if you message me, I'm going to let you in no matter what. So this was Whale Matrons. He was in my Birds of Paradise pod with me. He ended up going 8-1. So he is playing Black-Red. His first 2 picks were both of the Commander Goyfs, Pyrogoyf and Barogoyf. He's a very, very strong, like, sort of Reanimator type Black-Red deck. So he's got, like, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. He didn't get the Reanimate, but he got both Persist and Necromancy. He's got, like, a very good curve, a lot of 2-drops with Dothy Voidwalker, Caustic Bronco, Demonic Tutor. Just very, like a very straightforward Black-Red deck. He's also got a Linktree. Good interaction, Flame Slash, go for the throat. Just a very solid Black-Red mid-range deck. He ended up going 8-1. So he was first place in Birds of Paradise pod. Second place was Rocket Man. I'm using everyone's Discord usernames. Rocket Man was on Bant Control, one of the few slower decks to do well. So his first pick was Tameo, Inquisitive Student, the MH3 Tameo, I believe into Uro. So he has it's basically like blue-white. He's got Supreme Verdict and Day of Judgment, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. He's got like Snapcaster Mage, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, and splashing green for Uro and Tameo, Collector of Tales, which is a good splash because he also has both Temporal Manipulation and Time Warp. And Tameo, Collector of Tales can rebuy those, as well as like Jace Vryn's Prodigy can do that as well. So you can do sort of like Time Walk loops. Also has a Mystic Sanctuary in his lands, in his like island heavy mana base, which can also rebuy the Time Warps, which is one of my favorite strategies to do in my cube. So Rocket Man went 8-2 in the Birds of Paradise pod. So those were the top 2 in my pod. In the other pod, the Lightning Bolt pod, first place was Ad Havoc, which is my friend Justin. He was basically just handed modern Boros energy. So my cube does not have Guide of Souls or a Johnny, but he did get Ocelot Pride, Swords to Plowshares, Goblin Bombardments, Quarry Steelcutter, Voice of Victory, Imidane's Recruiter, Cosmic Grand Zenith, Flage. He has Stoneforge Mystic with Cauldron Complete and Batterskull. He has Elspeth Stormslayer, which is a disgusting card. Arena of Glory in the mana base. Detective's Phoenix is another really strong haste enabler. This deck was absolutely disgusting. I don't know how the pod let him draft this so freely. He ended up with a clean 9-0 sweep in his pod. So the best record out of both pods. Deck is disgusting. I'm really excited for him to lose first round of the playoff because we all know that that's going to happen. So yeah, he did a very nice job drafting this. The Lightning Bolt pod was very even. So Justin went the clean 9-0 sweep. The second place was actually a tie for 5-4. So very, very even in the other pod. Is that right? Let me check. Yes, the other pod. Yeah, the next place was a tie for 5-4. This is Cooper. Cooper also drafted like Bant midrange. So he is on like Elvish Mystic, both Hierarchs, Utopia Sprawl. He also pick one. His first overall pick was Tameo, Inquisitive Student as well. Tameo is a pretty gross card. And he has just like a green mid-range deck with like some recursion pieces, Sarah Paragon, Cosmic Rebirth, He messaged me very early to say that when he was picking the Hierarch super highly, he was gunning for Plagon, Lord of the Beach, which if you don't know what this is, it is a Jumpstart 25 card. It's a 3-mana 0/3 legendary creature Starfish Wizard. When Plagon enters, draw a card for each creature you control with power greater than its toughness, and then has this like hybrid white-blue ability to make creatures assign power or assign damage using their toughness. This card is very deceptively powerful. Like, if you set up like Noble Hierarch into Plagon, that's a 3-mana 0/3 that draws 2, and that activated ability of boosting toughness actually comes up way more often than you'd think with stuff like 6, Sentinel of the Nameless City, like Tameo, Inquisitive Student, just because your opponent has to respect you being able to do that. So this is a huge overperformer. One of my favorite cards in the cube now. I think it's a really very unique card that I think is very fun. That a lot of people haven't really played with. It's really impressed me. So his deck was very good. I saw him draw like 5 or 6 cards with Plagon multiple times. The deck was very strong, and he got into the playoff at 5-4. So some big picture takeaways from the Rotisserie draft. One is that for my cube in particular, there are a bunch of consensus top cards. So Tameo was the first overall pick in both our drafts. Reanimate was top 5, Ocelot Pride. I think like the Goyfs went pretty high in each. So that's something that I'm looking at changing a little bit in future updates. I like keeping the power level relatively high, but after thinking about it and talking with the people in my Discord, I am going to be trimming the tippity top power level. Part of that is because the Arena powered cube was announced this week, and having like a cube on Arena that is just all of the most powerful cards you can play on Arena kind of lessens the pressure I feel on my own cube to be unique, in including all of these like busted MH3 cards like Tameo and Ocelot Pride. I'd already trimmed like Psychic Frog and a Johnny, but I feel pretty good about trimming like that next layer. So I think like I'm going to be swapping, I think, Reanimate for Life Death. So then the 3 reanimation spells are going to be Persist and Necromancy and Life Death. I think Ocelot Pride is going to go. I think Tameo is going to go. Gut was something that I tried, which actually went 3rd round in this one, which I think Gut is way too strong for this. I think both of the MH3 Commander Goyfs are a little too hot for this cube. They're just kind of like trimming that top layer a little bit. I'm going to keep a lot of the power outliers. Like Ragavan, I think, is a good power level. Ren and 6, etc. Like Uro, I think, is really good for this power level. The matchups I found in Rotisserie draft are very polarized. So as my green deck, I didn't do so well. I went 3-6. I stomped every single control deck I faced. Like it was not close. Like I played against Rocket Man, who was on the Bant control deck, and I absolutely destroyed him. And I myself got absolutely trounced by aggro. I played Drew here, who was on mono white, and just like could not keep up. Same with Ulavala here, on like white red, like Flage. Just like got trounced by aggro myself. And that was something I noticed from a lot of watching the matches. Was a lot of like there were good matches in there, but a lot of the matches were pretty polarized. And I think that is more a symptom of Rotisserie draft itself than something specific to my cube. In Rotisserie draft, everyone is playing with all of the tippity top power level cards. Like in a normal draft, my cube is 540 cards. 1/3 of the cards don't get drafted at all, which includes some of the top cards. So when you're playing with literally the most powerful cards in the cube, the games are going to be a lot more one-sided a lot of the times. Like the decks are going to hit their ceiling much more often, and the ceiling is going to match up differently against different decks. So not something I need to really worry about in terms of cube design, but something I am very much thinking about going into my next Rotisserie draft is that I want to maybe gun for something that is even more proactive than what I was doing, or maybe has like a little bit better options in terms of siding into like control or aggro matchups, maybe a little more play. Just because I felt like I was getting run over pretty consistently by disruptive aggro decks. I think another takeaway for my cube in terms of the design is that green is kind of in a pretty weird spot. We did have 2 green decks make it into the top 4 playoff. One of them was Bant Control Splashing Uro, which doesn't really count. The other one was a Mana Dork deck, but that deck only went 5 and 4. My take was that green was very good in my cube, but the Rotisserie draft did very, very poorly. Notably, the Strip Mine Ren and 6 decks went a combined 3 and 15. Strip Mine Ren and 6 were the first cards taken off the board by a player in both pods, and those decks did not perform very well against the field. Part of that, like I said, is because the Rotisserie decks are they're so proactive and so powerful. I think that green has fewer power outliers than the other colors. Like I said, its power is really in its mana dorks, which there's a lot of redundancy there, and redundancy doesn't really matter in Rotisserie draft because you can just pick the cards you want. But I do think green is in a little bit of a weird spot. I've been trying to support like a green beatdown deck, which I don't think really comes together in a capacity. So I kind of need to be honest about myself and that deck's, viability. Though I do think green will be a little bit better when people aren't playing with like literally all of the strongest cards. So I don't think too much I need to worry about with the cube, but it was really interesting drafting my cube in this way and just seeing how things shake out when it's very face up and getting to see other players' evaluations of the cards in a very face up way, both in terms of the draft and in terms of people's like ambient discussion while we were doing this, which, well, like I said, it was my favorite part of this whole process. So Rotisserie draft, like I said, cannot stress enough. This is so much fun. It's the most fun I've had like talking about Magic with people in a very, very long time. I would very highly recommend you pitch this to your play group. It's so much fun just to talk about all the picks, really look at everything face up. My own group, like my Discord after we drafted this face up, really wanted to jump in and do another one like immediately. And I've been urging people to just like be patient because I think we will burn out if we do it too fast. But we are planning to run another sometime in the next couple months. I'm thinking probably December. So if you're interested in joining the next SAMP Cube Rotisserie draft, you can reach out to me either on Discord or on Blue Sky. My Discord, I'll just mention it now. My Discord is SamP6 and my Blue Sky is samprat.bsky.social. So you can reach out to me there. I'm going to be linking the Cube Cobra to my own Arena Cube in the description. I will be making changes, I think, in the next couple days ahead of the new cards we're getting with the Power Cube. I will link both of these drafts spreadsheets so you can look at the whole draft. And you can reach out to me, like I said, and join our Discord and look at all the deck pictures. It's been really fun. The discussion was so much fun. We had one of the members, Last Abzan, who was in the other one, wrote a couple blog posts on his picks. He ended up in a pretty sweet like white-black Luris deck, and actually ended up losing the tiebreaker for top 4 at 5 and 4. His deck was pretty cool. He wrote some blog posts on his first couple picks and like his thought process for the Rotisserie draft, which was pretty cool. I'll link that too, and I will also link the like generic Lucky Paper template for doing your own Rotisserie draft. I think that sums it up. Yeah, thanks for listening. Hope you thought this was fun. We're going to be very soon back to normal Booster Draft Limited, which I'm kind of excited for after talking so much Cube. I like the ebb and flow of spending some time on Cube, spending some time on Booster Draft Limited, sort of a healthy Magic Limited diet. Yeah, that wraps it up. See you next week.